Hi guys, it's DovahNiik here again. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for watching my anxiety video. I know it was 45 minutes long, but I had quite a response from it, and so I thought I'd do what I said I was going to do, which was talk about the same subject, but in smaller, more condensed videos. I apologise if you can hear any drilling in the background. My next door neighbour's having windows put in, so I picked the perfect time to make a video. Anyway, so this is my first one. So for this video, I thought I'd go into what is anxiety and what causes anxiety. And this time I've wrote myself a little list here of things to talk about rather than just rambling on for 45 minutes. So first I'll describe it to you how the NHS website describes it, which is an overwhelming and prolonged level of fear, usually without a cause. And then anxiety is a feeling of unease, such as a worry or fear that can be mild or severe. Everyone has feelings of anxiety at some point in their life. For example, you may feel worried and anxious about sitting in an exam or a medical test or a job. So it can be perfectly normal in those situations, is what it's saying. But some people find it hard to control their worries, and their feelings of anxiety are more constant and can affect their daily lives. And it is the main symptom of several conditions, including panic disorder, phobias like agoraphobia or claustrophobia, post-traumatic stress disorder, and social anxiety disorder. And so you get anxiety in a lot of conditions like that. When I'm struggling with my seasonal affective disorder, which is SAD, it's called, I get anxiety. My anxiety is much worse during those periods as well. But I'll talk about seasonal affective disorder and some other forms of depression in a different video if anybody's interested. Also, if anybody is suffering from depression and they want to add a little sort of paragraph as to what it feels like for them, just let me know on one of my social media accounts, and I'll put it in anonymously. So then, after that bit on the NHS website, there is a little explanation of what generalized anxiety disorder is, and if you've watched my previous video, you'll know that that's what I've got. It says GAD is a long-term condition that causes you to feel anxious about a wide range of situations rather than one specific thing. People with GAD feel anxious most days and often struggle to remember the last time they felt relaxed. As soon as one anxious thought is resolved, another one may appear about a different issue. It's pretty much anxiety about everything. GAD can cause both psychological and physical symptoms, and they vary, but they usually include feeling restless and worried, having trouble concentrating or sleeping, and dizziness and heart palpitations. That's pretty much, probably your main things. But I thought I'd add what anxiety is like for me. And I've got some quotations here from a few of my friends about how anxiety feels for them. With me having generalized anxiety disorder, it is all the time, and it's sort of, you're not going around sort of shaking like that, you know what I mean? Like a more cartoon-like level of anxiety. It's very internal, and it's sort of like a normal person's anxiety level might be quite low if there's nothing going on that's nervous. But when you've got GAD, your anxious level is here all the time. You don't even know why 90% of the time. You're probably just so used to being there that you are this high all the time, which then makes you tense all the time. It makes your stomach hurt all the time. You've got acid, you will have palpitations. My resting heartbeat used to be 105, purely because I was that anxious all the time. I had slightly higher blood pressure than I should have had for a woman of my sort of age, and that is just because I was nervous all the time about many different things. Your mind is never still. There's always something going on one of your levels in your brain when you've got probably any anxiety disorder, to be honest. And then I'll just talk a little bit separately about an anxiety attack, a panic attack, because it is a little bit different than an anxiety disorder. Usually it's part of it. You may find that you're anxious for so long that it builds up and then it comes out as a panic attack. And the attack part is that it is, it's a very fast, it's sort of, I'm trying to describe it as the best way I can. Let's say something sudden happens to you, your body responds by suddenly getting this spike of absolute dread. the palpitations are quick and fast. You begin sweating, shaking. You might even lose control of your legs a little bit. You know what I mean? Or a lot of your muscles. Your vision can narrow. You will hyperventilate and you'll feel dizzy. And that is a panic attack. And a lot of people that have panic attacks feel like they're going to die. A lot of panic attacks get mistaken for heart attacks. You find you might want to go to the hospital thinking you're going, you know, when you're having a heart attack, and you might get sent home because it's a panic attack. That's what it's like. It doesn't always have to be, the feeling that you get doesn't always have to be physical, like that you feel you're having a heart attack, but you will feel like there is something suddenly imminent going to happen to you, and you'll want to run or act in some way. You have to escape this dread, and that's your flight or fight response to things that happens in normal situations where something actually is happening to you. You know what I mean? You are in actual danger. That's the response. But with anxiety and panic attacks, that happens for no reason. You sort of like could be happy one minute, and then the next minute you sort of brain will say, be prepared, be prepared, be prepared. And you'd be like, why? And your brain said, just be prepared. And so you're on edge for no reason. It could be something in your mind that you've remembered from the past that is making you anxious. You could feel something in your body that you didn't like or you've never felt before, and that will spike it. It depends on you and on what causes your anxiety. Which leads me on to the next bit I would like to talk about, which is what causes anxiety. And this is a very open-ended question, like I said before, but I would like to have a little go at trying to describe it to you, just in case any of you viewing are new to this or have just got it and it's not sort of been like with me, which is a very long-term thing since I was pre-teens. So on the NHS website, the exact cause of GAD, this one is, for generalized anxiety disorder, but I'm assuming that this also will fit for a lot of different anxiety disorders. The exact cause of this isn't fully understood, although it's likely that a combination of factors plays a role. Research has suggested that this may include overactivity in areas of the brain involving emotions and behaviour, an imbalance of the brain chemicals serotonin and noradrenaline, which are involved in the control and regulation of mood. Your genes you inherit from your parents. You're estimated to be 5 times more likely to develop GAD if you have a close relative with the condition. Having a history of stressful or traumatic experiences such as domestic violence, child abuse, bullying. Having a painful long-term health condition such as arthritis. And having a history of drug or alcohol misuse. I think that's a pretty good explanation. A list of things that can cause anxiety. Mine, I'd like it says there, is a mixture of, I had a pretty tough childhood. My birth mother was schizophrenic. I was brought up by my grandparents because she was unable to look after me, and I saw her the way she was, and I saw that how her mental condition affected my parents, well, my grandparents, but I call them parents, and it gave my mother very bad anxiety to see her daughter, which is my birth mother. So if you hear me saying birth mother in this and mother, they're 2 separate people, just for some clarification. But it gave my mother extraordinary anxiety, and she had, I now realise, generalized anxiety disorder, but completely undiagnosed. So I would, and she would, what if every situation. I call it the what if disease, GAD, because everything that you do, you will say, what if this happens? What if that happens? Say I go outside. What if I get mugged today? What if I go outside and something horrific happens to me? What if I go outside, fall over and everybody laughs? Just a never-ending display of what if. And after such a long time of having that, you'll stop doing what you're scared of doing. And so seeing my mother like that made me like that a little bit. You do, don't you? You pick up things from your parents, and so that does explain a little bit of what it said here was you get it from your parents. Whether it's a genes thing with me, I don't know. As I said, my birth mother has schizophrenia. She doesn't seem to have anxiety with that, but my sister and a couple of other members of my family also struggle with anxiety. So it could be completely situational. seeing it from other people, or it could be a genes thing. I don't know, but that's where I get mine from. So traumatic experiences with that. I did get bullied a little bit as well, which adds to anxiety. And I have seen quite a lot of people with drug or alcohol problems that suffer from anxiety. Of course, it's going to. Anybody that's drank too much or for a long period will know how that makes you feel. And I have got a little explanation from some of my friends, what I pulled off Facebook, on what anxiety is for them. So here's one. When a single social activity planned at the weekend causes me to spend an entire week worrying and hoping that I'll get ill so I don't have to go. Or that strange sinking feeling you get after you've spent an hour making yourself look good. The one where you wonder who you're fooling by trying to fit in with society. Now that rings quite a bell with me because I'm very, very similar to that. And these are some of the thoughts that will be going through your head. Another one. My anxiety makes me shake, my stomach is in knots, and it sets my irritable bowel syndrome off. I can't eat, I get reflux, I cry, and I feel like my life is in a big dark hole which I can't get out of. Now this one is very much physical symptoms as well, isn't it? And irritable bowel and reflux. I've got gastroesophageal reflux disease, which is basically these symptoms but extraordinarily long-term and chronic, and I've got them from being a worrier my entire life. So the physical symptoms are not to be scoffed at with anxiety. The next one, also stomach in knots plus tingling in the inner side of my arms. If it was the exposed outer side that bears the brunt of bumps and scrapes, I wouldn't pay it much mind, but the softer protected inner side makes me subconsciously think vulnerable. It's perhaps of note that my anxiety has got me so well controlled that I do things without anxiety-inducing activities even occurring to me. For example, there are bus stops on the same route, almost a stone's throw of both my mother's and my house, yet the possibility of actually catching one never occurs to me. I'll spend hours a night stressing about whether I can make the walk or not, without the idea of catching this bus even popping into my head. And that's avoidant behaviour that comes along with an anxiety disorder. You will become extraordinarily adept at avoiding, in many ways, the different things that you are anxious about. As I said before, there are many forms of anxiety. There's generalized anxiety. I also suffer with social anxiety, agoraphobia. There is claustrophobia, one I didn't think of earlier. Post-traumatic stress, panic disorder is one. There's many forms. I also struggle really badly with hypochondria before and after my mum passed away, which I sort of obsess about, like lumps and bumps or feelings that I haven't felt before on my body, and then when I feel them, I will get this sort of pang of anxiety that builds and builds and builds and builds into a panic attack. And I cause this myself a little bit because when you feel these type of things, you go into a cycle of anxiety, meaning that as soon as you feel the anxious feelings and you've had these anxious thoughts, you will react a certain way. The last poster avoided the stops that made him anxious and walked instead. That's avoiding your problem, and that's part of the cycle. And later on in one of my other videos, I'd like to talk to you guys about some of the treatments from anxiety, and one of them is cognitive behavioural therapy, and that will teach you how to break that cycle, that avoidance cycle, which in the long term is very, very helpful to anxiety, but in the short term it will make you feel a lot more anxious. So if you're interested in that, that will follow up shortly when I get a chance to film it. And I'm going to do a separate video for a few other subjects as well. I thought for this one, I'll do what is anxiety and a little bit of what causes it. As you can probably see, it was an open-ended question, that one, because it is many things. My friend had it, she got the flu and she had anxiety after it. That brought it on, and it became a constant thing. I mean, I know the flu can be quite bad, so maybe that's what triggered it. Being nervous about having the flu sort of spiked it. Some people will just find that they have it for no reason. Is a weird one. You could have a perfectly happy childhood. You could have not got bullied, no health conditions really, and you just get it. And in many conditions, I think that it is sort of a reaction to being alive, like I said before. You will get anxious in response to something. If you've gone through your life never getting a spell of unnecessary anxiety, you're a very lucky human being, I think. More people now are admitting to have anxiety than they ever have. And it is because it is a natural human response to fear. The problem is these days is that fear comes in different forms now. I think, you know, if you were speaking sort of caveman days, your risks and your dangers are very specific to you. You could freeze to death, get eaten by something, or get into a fight with another caveman. You know what I mean? Your dangers are there and they are sort of visible. Whereas these days we don't worry about things like that. I've never been hit over the head by a club from another caveman, nor have I been eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. So they're not as easy to define what your risks, you know, growing up in this day and age. And I think that's why our brains don't know what to be anxious about a lot of the time. So it overreacts to certain things. Sometimes it doesn't react in the right way when there are dangers, because the modern world is a very confusing place, especially now. You might find some people will say to, you know, sort of middle-aged people, oh, we didn't have this type of thing in my day. We didn't get anxious about stuff, we were tough. But if you think about the world that they lived in, let's say 60-year-olds, 50-year-olds, their lives were a lot more structured than ours. For a lot of people, it would mean getting married and having a child, being a working person or a housewife, and you would think a certain way and act a certain way. And so really, you don't have to be anxious about much when your life is set into a structured sort of path like that. But we don't want to all live like that. And so it's a very anxious thing that sort of the new modern world where you've got so many options. It makes for extraordinarily anxious behavior. Sorry, I lost my train of thought then. But if you see what I mean, when you don't have a plan or a structure, that might be why we're getting more nervous now than ever. Plus, it's nice to have that freedom, but when you can't afford it, and money worries are more prominent now than ever, again, no wonder people are anxious. The thing is to remember, I think, that it is a normal response. Even if it is a disorder and not just a little bit of anxiety, you know what I mean, over-worrying, being overly anxious, it still is normal. It's more normal now than ever, and more people are admitting it, and you will realise you're not alone in this. It's not, the word mental illness is not as terrifying as people once thought it was. There are some very scary mental illnesses, but that's a different thing. But anxiety and depression, they're not one of them. They are completely and utterly normal. So in the next video, I think I'm going to talk about some different types of treatments, and I'll make some of the follow-up videos from my previous video, you know, the huge one. And I'll do some more points in that. But if you've managed to get through this, and I know I started to ramble a little bit there, so I apologise. It's just me. Again, that's the way I react when I'm feeling anxious. There's one for you. And also, I would like to do a separate video as well about high-functioning anxiety, which is another thing that I do, which is how it makes us react in life. I'll do one of those as well. But yes, thank you for watching this one, and I'll post the follow-up very soon. Goodbye.